Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 4S and see how this particular iPhone holds up in 2024. Now, a few things I'll definitely tell you. This particular iPhone is such an old iPhone, and I wouldn't really recommend any of the average people, out there to actually purchase this device and use it. It makes absolutely no sense to go into it, and you are so much better off buying a device that is still supported with software rather than buying this device in almost every single way. So if you want to pick up an iPhone that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the iPhone 4S, the thing you have to give the 4S a lot of credit for is that the body of this thing still feels so premium in this day and age. Like, this iPhone still feels and looks so beautiful, and that is one of the best advantages of purchasing a device like this. Like, on the front of this thing, you're getting that 3.5-inch IPS LCD panel on it, and I do think, without a doubt, this is one of the biggest assets of this particular phone. So for one, the panel of this thing was a Retina panel, and that was a really big, thing going on for this particular phone, because you can go ahead and buy this device and still get a really good looking panel on it for the most part. It's a good looking phone. I have nothing really to complain about here. On the top, you're getting that front camera, which is very good. And on the bottom, you're getting that, home button that you can basically click in, and that's kind of it. Now, there was no Touch ID, no Face ID, no notch, no dynamic island. Still a very good looking phone for the most part. And once again, if I'm going to go ahead and buy a phone, I definitely want it to be looking somewhat like this, back in 2011 when this phone came out. But keep in mind, this is a very old phone. The phone came out 13 years ago. So I doubt you want to go and buy a phone that looks like this now. But at that moment, that was a really good thing going on for this particular phone, was that it looked this beautiful. On the bottom, you're getting that 30-pin connector and that headphone jack. A few things to keep in mind. This was kind of the last iPhone to basically have that 30-pin connector. Every single iPhone after this was basically giving you that lightning port, which was actually a very cool thing. But like I said, if you're going to go ahead and buy an iPhone, I'm sure you want to go ahead and make sure that it has some sort of future ability ahead of it. And it's funny because this was the last one to have that 30-pin connector. Since the iPhone 5, all the iPhones had lightning ports until the iPhone 15. Then Apple switched it over to USB-C, but for so many years, basically every single year, each iPhone was giving us that same exact port that this iPhone basically ended off with. This iPhone didn't have it, but this one was the last one to have that old connector. I think the lightning connector was a much smarter choice for them to do. But with this particular phone, I think the 30-pin connector was a really good way to kind of sunset it on this particular phone. And it was the second generation S device that Apple made at this moment too. Now, on the sides of this phone, this is another thing that is very, very future-proofed on this particular phone. You were actually getting that complete flat side on this phone, which was genuinely a very cool thing. Having that flat side on this phone was a very, very nice thing, because you could easily just go through and just have that flat side on this phone, and it feels so modern. Like, the iPhone 15 still have it, this particular iPhone has it, and that is, once again, by far one of the coolest things going on for this particular phone. So if I'm about to go ahead and buy some sort of phone, I want it to have this type of capability, because it's going to be way more modern than a phone that has like a curved side to it. On the complete back, you're getting this complete flat glass back. Like I said before, looks and feels so premium. Having this glass back is very, very nice. It wasn't the first iPhone with a glass back, but it's funny because for so many years after this particular iPhone, there were so many years where Apple did not give us a glass back anymore. They basically were just giving us the standard, like kind of aluminum back with like glass on the top and bottom. Very, very weird approach. I still don't know why they did that. This one was a much better approach, and they didn't even bring back the glass back until from like 2011 to like 2012, all the way up to 2017. For 5 years, we were getting like aluminum and then kind of like a hybrid aluminum kind of thing. This one gave us that full-on glass back, and the iPhone 10 and 8 finally brought it back, completely on the other side. Now, some things on the outside that you're missing that a lot of phones are giving you nowadays, things like IP certification, Wi-Fi, wireless charging, not Wi-Fi, but random things like that you are not getting on this particular phone, which can be kind of a disadvantage for those of you who are wanting to buy this phone. But like I said, you should not be even trying to use this phone. This should be a collector's item and nothing more than that. It should be collector's item. You should not be using this phone on an everyday basis. So from that perspective, that kind of covers it up there. Now, from a camera side of things, like I said, this is just another reason why you probably should not be looking at this phone to buy. It's an 8-megapixel standard camera on the back and then a VGA camera on the front. This is a very, very average camera in almost every single way. So for this type of camera, having that 8-megapixel camera on the back, very, very average. Even at that moment, it was like pretty decent. It was kind of more or less what you were getting on the iPhone 4. But this was like a very, very average, this was a very, very bad camera for today's standards. It's just very choppy and glitchy. I think everyone knows that. But at that moment back in 2011, this was a cutting edge camera, which is so crazy to think about. You wouldn't actually imagine that a camera like this was like that time, like one of the best cameras ever. And that is like exactly what was going on for this particular phone. So I look back at something like the iPhone 4S, And I genuinely do think at that moment, this camera, very, very average. But it's like kind of grown in a way for it being such a collector's item in so many different places that if you're going to go ahead and boot up this camera, because it is on kind of a decent version of iOS, you can still load up things like Snapchat and TikTok, not TikTok, but like Snapchat and Instagram. And on certain software versions, you can open up the camera and still get access to the camera. And it isn't like a terrible experience. Like I've definitely had worse experiences than this thing, but because the screen is so small, it's just not really going to be that great of an experience. So kind of keep that in mind, but otherwise the camera here, there's really not much else to kind of talk about. It's just like a very, very outdated and like old type of camera when it comes down to it. So that kind of covers it up there. Now on the other side from this particular phone, you are basically getting a super outdated phone. This thing has been outdated with software for so many years. And if you're going to go ahead and buy some sort of, phone now, you probably want it to be supported with software, and that is not what you're getting here. You are not getting a phone that is supported with software, and that is kind of the problem. Like I can only, recommend phones for people to buy that are still supported with software, and that is not what's going on here. This phone has been severely outdated with software for so many years now. So why would I go ahead and recommend people to buy a phone like this when you can easily go ahead and buy like an iPhone 10 or 10s or 10s Max or newer for maybe like a couple of $100s? Those phones that I just mentioned are like less than 200 in a lot of places. Why would you go and buy this phone when those phones are in the market that you can easily buy all over the place? So when I say things like that, I really mean it. Like you should not be thinking about buying this phone anymore. You are much better off purchasing devices that are still supported with software. Those are way better ideas than this particular device. So take it as you will, but just take it from my advice. That's one way to kind of think about this particular phone. On top of that, performance-wise, this particular phone had that Apple A5 chip inside of it with 512 megabytes of RAM. I'm like choking up thinking about how terrible of an amount of RAM that thing is. I mean, first of all, Apple A5 chip back in 2011 was very good. This was like the fastest phone, one of the fastest phones of 2011. How crazy of that is to kind of like think about it. You're also getting 512 megabytes of RAM. That is also a very low amount of RAM to have inside of a device. So why would you even think about using this phone from that perspective? Very basic things inside of this phone like texting and phone calls and emails is going to be a very slow experience. And like I said, I would hate for you, like the person watching this video, I would hate for you to actually go ahead and buy a phone like this. That's just not going to be that great of an experience because you're going to be experiencing a lot of glitches and just a lot of annoyingness that you probably don't want to deal with. So what I would definitely tell you, for every single person watching this video, the iPhone 4S is pretty much not worth buying in any single capacity. It really wasn't worth buying when it first came out. It wasn't really worth buying even last year or the year before or the year before the year before. Like for so many years, this phone has just been a very, very bad deal, and I just don't think it's a phone that I would recommend really any person to buy. You are much better off purchasing phones that are still supported with software, things like the iPhone 10 or 10s and 10s Max, and this particular phone is not worth buying in any capacity. I would highly recommend avoiding it unless you want to go and use it as a collector's item. That's a little bit different. Other than that, I really wouldn't recommend buying this phone. So that pretty much covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.